Our second question is this. Global warming is threatening our world. What do you plan to do to halt climate change the way we live and our using up of the world's resources? And I'm going to ask Alison to take this question first. Alison.
Thank you. I'm very pleased that this question has been asked this evening, and I'm actually delighted that throughout this whole campaign, the question of climate change is absolutely up there front and centre. I mean, our manifesto commitments are all about a just recovery from the pandemic, but they're also about tackling the climate and nature emergencies in which we also find ourselves at this time. The scientists tell us that we have 9 years to act in order to avoid runaway catastrophic climate change, and we're already seeing the ravages of fire and flood across the globe and the impact that's having on crops and livelihoods, and it's driving people from their homes. We want to build a better future for all of us, and we can do that. But in order to do that, people are going to have to accept that we have to change the way we do things. We want to invest. We have a plan for 100,000 jobs, and they will be in renewables. They will also be in rewilding Scotland, and they will be in public transport too. While electric cars have a place in society, we can all sit in an electric car traffic jam. They are not the solution. We need to be investing in mass public transit, and we have to make public transport affordable. To that end, we've already been able, through our negotiations with the Scottish Government, to introduce free bus transport for everyone aged 21 and under. But we want to go far further. We need to reinvigorate rail, which has been ignored. It really needs to be subsidised. It's absolutely absurd that flights can be so inexpensive when some of the more sustainable low carbon technologies that we have available to us are stymied in such a way. There's so much we can do here with regards to the way that we grow our food, with the way that we get about this city. I mean, Edinburgh has so many air pollution hotspots. Air pollution in Scotland kills 2,500 people per year. We have
sorry, I'm realising that.
Thank you very much.
To give you only a minute to answer this question is really not fair, but those are the constraints we're under. So I think you've given us a flavour of your answer, but thank you. Fred, over to you.
I'm going to focus on change. I'm going to focus on two issues, because I think the point that Alison makes about 9 years to act is extremely fair, and one we have to take on board. We have to realise that we need to focus on this issue as part of the pandemic recovery. It's one of the reasons we don't support a big debate about constitutional change. In a moment, Angus will tell me that we're perfectly capable of doing two things at once, but I would suggest this is too big to be distracted from. Two issues we want to take action on. One is we want to move 1 million homes to zero carbon heating from gas to air source heat pumps within this Parliament. And the second thing, we want to electrify our public transport system and create proper bus systems for the whole of Scotland. Of course, here in Edinburgh, we're very lucky. We've got Lothian buses, a publicly owned bus system. Doesn't happen in the rest of the country. Passenger numbers have dropped consistently across the rest of Scotland. We changed the model and moved to the system they have in London and most of Europe, where local authorities and local communities decide on bus routes rather than privately owned companies that are interested in their shareholders. And these sort of steps are big, they're important. There are lots of others. I can't cover them all in the time, but we need to focus on what we can do with the powers we've got, along with other people making their changes as well. But these are important, and we need some stability in terms of the system we're living in order to make these changes.
Thank you very much, Fred. A model of keeping within the time. Thank you. Daniel, a minute for you to address climate change.
Well, look, this is undoubtedly kind of the most pressing issue that's facing the planet. And we have pledges towards that. We would like to upgrade all Scottish homes to category C. That would mean upgrading 80,000 homes a year, replanting 15,000 hectares of forest, and creating a conservation corps. But there's a broader point I think needs to be made here as well, and that the pandemic and recovery is the overarching theme of this election. But this is an example of the sort of thing that we need to do, because I think a lot of the ways that we address recovery are about accelerating what are the right things to do anyway. Because by, I think, decarbonising our homes, which generate about a fifth of all carbon emissions. We can create jobs, which can help us recover. So I think by accelerating that zero carbon economy, we're also helping the recovery. And I think, as we move forward, we need to find these win-win scenarios where bringing forward the right things to do can also help us recover. I think that was bang on a minute.
Perfect, Daniel. You're you're used to this sort of thing. Great. Angus, climate change.
Thank you. My minute starts now. Climate change and the biodiversity crisis are a reality that we must face now. Even in the midst of the pandemic, the climate emergency remains a pressing crisis. So key bullet points from the SNP would be increasing progress towards becoming a net zero nation. We need to invest in nature-based solutions. We need to promote climate justice, decarbonize the way that we heat our homes, revolutionize our transport system, become a leading hydrogen nation. We haven't heard that yet. It's one of the tremendous opportunities that we have. We don't need to embrace fracking, and we should build a circular economy. For people who want to know more about this, and frankly anything else, please have a look at our manifesto, because it is all there to be read in much greater detail. Hopefully that's made it within a minute.
Thank you, Angus. And lastly, Miles, your thoughts on climate change and how we mitigate it.
Thanks, John. And I think it's welcome to see the cross-party consensus we've seen on this issue. And I agree with what Daniel said. I think the next Parliament, we need to look at both our recovery, but also how we're going to tackle this. Because as a country, we've done a lot of work to deliver energy production changes around this, and we are now producing renewable energy at levels which are self-sufficient for Scotland, which I think is a great step forward. But one of the hardest things we now need to do is look at our own homes. So over the next 5 years, we want to see £2.5 billion invested into energy efficiency. And we want to look at what more we can do to support individual homeowners. For example, most of us will have a gas or oil-fired boiler. That will have to be replaced, and how we're going to make that affordable for families to take that forward is something we all need to work on. And so I hope we'll see these sorts of ideas progressed. But above all, there seems to be at this election quite a lot of consensus and good ideas coming on this issue from all parties. So I hope the next Parliament we will focus on this and start to progress this as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Miles, and to all of you. Again, my apologies that we are so constrained in time, particularly with an issue like that, which obviously could be devoted a lot more time to it.